So we all know how expensive Louis Vuitton fragrances can be. Everything from Afternoon Swim to Meteor to Ombre Nomade. The brand is pretty expensive, right? Not just with their fragrances, but with their other leather good products as well. Here we have an inspiration of a Louis Vuitton fragrance. This one is called L'Immensité. I'm excited to give you my thoughts of Dossier's inspired expression, if you will. It's called Aromatic Ginger, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's video and I tell you all about Aromatic Ginger, which is Dossier's version of L'Immensité by Louis Vuitton, I want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell so you could be notified whenever I do upload these daily videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. So I love so many of Louis Vuitton's fragrances. Of course, Afternoon Swim is one of the most popular ones. It gets compared a lot to Tiger by Bulgari. And then there's also Meteor, which I purchased quite recently, actually about a month ago or so, and I've been wearing it all the time. It's an amazing fragrance to wear to work. And I do own a few others from the brands, either samples or decants or what have you. And I've had the pleasure of trying L'Immensité in the past weeks or months or so. And here we have a fragrance that is a clone of it, and it's called Aromatic Ginger. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dossier makes far more affordable versions of popular designer or niche fragrances. And this one is pretty much set at niche pricing, right? Even though it's a luxury designer. And this one is concentrated at 18%. For a lot of brands, that would be eau de parfum concentration. So I like the fact that the brand is quite transparent in, at the very least, letting you know what the exact numerical percentage of the concentration is. And all of the ingredients are listed on the back as well. So with ingredients like ginger and amberwood and grapefruit and labdanum, there's going to be this really nice contrast between sweet and dense. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this fragrance, but let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. Now, the fresh tones of this fragrance create this luminous opening, which I think is going to lure a lot of people in, and the opening is really delightful. And I can see why this is kind of one of the brand's more popular fragrances. I know Afternoon Swim and Ombre Nomade, and there's a lot of other fragrances that tend to do really, really well for the brand. But this one, given the fact that it's a freshie with some density to it, opens up really bright and luminous. And then if we're looking at the top notes, we have ginger, grapefruit, and marine notes. As I was trying it, I was like, is there something a little salty or oceanic in here? And yes, but I don't think it's stronger than the aromatic properties of the fragrance. And I'm specifically talking about the clary sage. Also, in terms of the grapefruit that's in here, I don't think it's as tart as something like Afternoon Swim. In Afternoon Swim, the grapefruit is very tart, very bright, very juicy. This is actually a really nice balance of fresh, aromatic, but also kind of warm, right? The amberwood, it has these ambery components. It's a little warm. It has this resinous touch to it, and the labdanum certainly contributes to that. It's a little exotic. It's not sweet at all. I think the sweetness would have been a big contradiction to the freshness, even though I've tried that in a lot of other fragrances. That's not what's happening here. The clary sage gives it this modern, youthful, gentlemanly quality, but despite that, I actually find the fragrance to be perfectly unisex. I think there's a lot of the other notes in here, specifically the fresh tones, that open up very unisex, very gender neutral. And then even in the dry down with the amberwood, there's nothing particularly masculine about it. So I would say only a few ingredients, including the clary sage, put you in the mindset of, oh, could this be a fragrance marketed for men? But then when you take a look at it as a whole, you realize that it's actually more gender neutral than it is swaying in one direction or another. Also in the heart, you have rosemary and geranium. Geranium can smell a little bit like rose. It can be a little minty. But again, that clary sage joining the rosemary gives it that aromatic heart. And I am getting a lot of clary sage or sclarine or whatever molecule is being used to substitute the clary sage. It's a big trend nowadays. In the base, you have the labdanum and the amberwood, and the fragrance concludes with a really nice, warm dry down. Of course, that citrusy freshness is not going to last forever. You know, you'll be surprised if you get it to last more than 25 minutes or so. I mean, it's quite ephemeral, but that's okay because this fragrance is very beautiful in the way that it is non-linear, right? If I were to compare this to the original, which I think I should do given the fact that this is a clone, I would say this one is really, really close to the original. If you sprayed this and put this in front of me without me knowing what it is, and you asked me which Louis Vuitton is this a clone of, I would guess it immediately. And I think anybody who has any experience with the Louis Vuitton brand, you would guess it immediately as well. Now, of course, in terms of giving it an exact percentage and saying something like, oh, this is 95% similar to the original, it's 98% similar to the original, I really don't know. I would have to run it through a gas chromatograph or a mass spectrometer, look at the lab analysis and say, oh, okay, here's the discrepancy in terms of the ingredients or whatever. I don't have that capability, so I can't put an exact percentage on it. All I'm saying is that this one smells very, very close to the original, and I think if you have the original, maybe you haven't worn it for a few weeks, you spray this on, you can easily trick yourself into thinking it's the original. Very close in terms of the smell, pretty much identical in terms of the presentation. Unfortunately, with bright, fresh fragrances, you can't expect them to last 10, 11, 12 hours. Even something like Meteor, as much as I love it, I get like 6 or 7 hours from it. This one, it has the amberwood, it has some of the dense ingredients in the dry down, so you can expect more in the vein of like 7 or 8 hours from it. So it's a little bit better, but still not as great as something like an Ombre Nomade, right? Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, well, this is a clone, so it's not unique at all. But in terms of Louis Vuitton fragrances, there are a few that are incredibly mass appealing, and this is certainly one of them. Longevity, 7 to 8 hours on skin. Projection was beyond an arm's length for the first half hour of application, while that citrus was really radiating and booming off the skin. It started to become an elbow's length scent right around hour 4, right around hour 7, it became a skin scent. Versatility, perfectly unisex. I think this one can be worn dressed up or dressed down, but it does have a bit more of a casual personality about it. I think this is great for every season except for the winter time, so get as much use out of it now before the winter rolls around. And I think this one is great for anybody of any age. In terms of the presentation, rather minimal. I like the fact that it doesn't rattle around in the box or anything like that. Some other brands have a tendency of doing that. They've all been shipped to me intact and very nicely put together. And I do like the inclusion of the card that lists the thank you message, the concentration, the notes, a little bit of a history on the brand, so on and so forth. I think that's a really nice touch. My final verdict on this fragrance is it's a great alternative to Le Mancite by Louis Vuitton. Aromatic Ginger is a wonderful fragrance for you to pick up and try. I hope you have the opportunity to try it soon, and I hope you love it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you took something of value from my review. If you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell, give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.